Welcome to the Whitetail Obsession Podcast with Dave Richmond and co-host Chris Worthing, where we talk and teach everything deer and turkey hunting related. Follow along as we help teach you tips and techniques about hunting, food plots, and habitat management strategies that everyone can use.
All right, guys, welcome back to Podcast 60. If Chris Focus is here for once, he's wearing a domain hat. Good for you. Good for him. I don't have one. So
Woo, woo, woo.
yeah. So Podcast 60, guys, and real quick, we're gonna just tell you guys what it's going to be about. If Chris focuses, today's podcast is going to be all about CWD. Now, before we jump into that, I just want to start out by saying this. Somebody had asked us to do this podcast. I can't remember who it was. But I think it was a comment on my.
Yeah, it was a comment.
Okay, on Facebook or something.
And we are not experts.
Yeah, I want to say anything that we say,
it's our opinion.
Literally opinion. No, there's no biologists, research. This is literally just our opinion on this, and we'll just kind of go through it. And the podcast listener was like, hey, we just want to hear your guys' opinion on this. And I had make videos. I'll be honest, I made videos on this 5-6 years ago, and my stance on it has changed. Okay, so I will say that
I had one as well, probably 2 years ago.
Yep.
And I don't remember what my stance was. I don't think I had a stance. I think I was just neutral and was just talking about it.
I just had an opinion on it, and I'm going to explain what that was and my new opinion. But
all right,
before we jump into CWD, everybody watching the podcast, okay, I told Chris I had a surprise for him. The other day.
I don't like surprise. Is this good surprise or bad surprise?
It's good, but the people that's just listen to audio, you'll just have to try to decipher everything.
Decipher if it's good.
Okay, so here, you ready for this?
All right, hit me with it.
All right, we're try to keep this 5 minutes or shorter, and then we'll jump. I promise we'll jump straight into CWD.
All
right.
Don't make me kill you.
All right, guys. This is Chris's Sika stag.
Okay.
This is the Sika you shot.
Yes, it is.
Okay, look at this thing. Now, for people that don't know what Sika deer are, they live on the eastern shore. They live in the swamps. Brought Chris down last October, and we did Sika hunting. And he stole my thunder and shot this Sika buck. Okay, he stole my thunder. Now, if you're looking at this, it might be like, wow, that thing's small because you don't know what a Sika deer is. Right. Well, Chris shot this, and he didn't really know much about them.
I had no clue.
Yep, he texted me and said, "Hey, I shot a Sika buck." And when I came over and saw it, I was like, "Dude, you just shot like a record book Sika." Okay, well, this is Chris's. Why do I have it in my house in Maryland and Chris lives in PA?
Because you stole it.
He dropped this off to me at the Great American Outdoor Show, and since he shot it in Maryland, I took it because the score, the local scorer. That scores it for bucks, bears, and stags for the official Maryland record. I took it to his house. He officially scored this bad boy. Okay, now everybody's looking at this. All right, now hold on, I ain't done yet. All right, now this is Chris's certificate.
I haven't seen it yet.
No, Chris has not seen this. So this is Chris's certificate, and it says. Certificate of Recognition, Maryland's Finest, Chris Worthing, in recognition, Maryland's Sika deer. We celebrate the success of Maryland's wildlife management by acknowledging successful hunters like you and by honoring the finest examples of those legally invested or legally harvested Maryland bucks. Now, Chris's buck was shot in Dorchester County. The gross score of this bad boy was 70 3/8. The net is 60 1/8 inch. Okay, again, if you're thinking of
1/8,
68 1/8.
Okay, I was gonna say a whole 10 inches.
68 1/8.
Okay.
Now,
what does that mean? Did it have deductions or something?
I can't remember what he said, but yeah, I don't know. But
yeah, I don't understand it. But
I was
okay.
standing right there, and I didn't
So what do
understand
they use? Which number do they use? The higher number?
the net, I believe.
The smaller number?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy.
I don't know.
But I ain't done yet.
Okay, you
So
ain't done. Listen up.
this is the Maryland Finest Record Book, and is produced by Bucks, Bears, and Stags. Okay. Now, when this buck scored, I looked at the score sheet, 70 and 3/8 gross. I
Mhm.
came home and I went into here and I went to the page of Sick-a-Deer. Chris shot this with a muzzleloader. Okay. Now, this is last year's record book. Okay. Years ago, Maryland never had a record book. They officially do now, and it's ran by Alan Ellis, which he has a radio show. But anyway, if you look through this bad boy, okay, Chris's stag would literally rank about I'm somewhere between 13 and 15th in the state of
Nice.
Maryland of all time.
Nice.
So here's a guy that lives in PA, comes down for one day, steals my thunder, and shoots a record book sicka. Now,
Now you
what do you got to say about that?
okay, here's what I gotta say about that.
What you
Now
got to
you
say?
stirred it up. Now I'm gonna be getting hate mail from all the people down there that live
Yep,
along the refuge.
I'm making Chris famous right now.
And I'm gonna be on the likes of Meat Eater and all those guys that got all that. Who was it? Was it Meat Eater and
Hey,
Seek One?
Steve Ranella,
Was
meat
it
eater.
was it Seek One? Was it is that
See,
who he went
yeah,
with, or Hunting Public or somebody?
I don't know, somebody.
One of them two people he went with, and they went down there was hunting for them. I don't even know if they killed one, did they?
I don't think so.
And now that's the thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, these out-of-staters are down here because they watched Steve Ranella." You know, so now I'm the next Steve Ranella, I guess.
You're famous.
Except I actually scored. Woo!
But seriously, anybody listening though, like, how cool is that?
It is cool.
Like out of all time, all deer scored. Like, you're like, I don't know what it'll be
But
next year.
that's with muzzleloader, though, right?
Yes, with muzzle.
I
Well,
mean,
the score for bow goes down.
oh,
It went high. Like, you're like that's big. Like
really?
the record is like 78 inches. So you're only like
I'm like
7
7 5/8 away from being
something,
number one.
something like that. Yeah.
Wow,
So how crazy is that?
that is crazy.
So that's pretty cool.
But it would have
Well,
made a cool mount.
yeah, we went over our 5 minutes of bragging
All
about
right,
your
that was a
buck.
good surprise. Thank
But
you.
anyway, I have his stuff, and I plan on giving it back to Chris in May when we do a canoe fishing trip.
There
So
you go.
that's why I have it.
Well, that was a good surprise. Thank you.
Yeah, stole my thunder.
No, you'll shoot one next year.
Yeah, I will. Sick-a-deer. CWD.
CWD on the brain.
CWD on the brain.
Literally
Yeah,
on the brain.
it is literally on the brain.
It literally is on the brain.
I'm sure anybody listening, everybody has heard about CWD.
Right.
Literally everybody.
And
Now,
it has touched my part of the world here too.
and it's in Maryland too. Now, I don't really keep up with it. I'll be honest, I don't really keep up with it, and personally, like, I don't really care. Now, here's my opinion on this, and we can jump into different things. But years ago, I made some videos, and that was my opinion that supplemental feeding deer, like dumping corn and minerals and things like that, help spread the CWD. That was just what I thought, years ago.
Yep.
I now have loosened my stance on that, and I don't really think that is an issue, just because deer are together all the time. They slobber and drool and everything together. Now, I will say that still dumping a pile of corn out in a pile and having 4 to 6 deer in a circle feeding in that is not natural. You like the only time they do that is when you dump corn. Like, that doesn't happen really. When you see them feeding out in a field or a food plot, they're spaced out. They're feet apart.
Yep.
Now, but again, they still live together in the woods. There's slobber, there's pee everywhere.
Yeah.
So they're in this environment. Now, so I've kind of loosened my stance on that, and I can't really say if it does contribute to it or not. So there's states now where they're banning feeding. Some states you can bait in, or I should say supplemental feed in the off season. And then there's other states where you can feed year round. I'm in a state in Maryland where you can literally feed all year long. There's no stopping.
which is
Pennsylvania,
crazy because their PA's blaming their situation on Maryland,
right.
basically, because it's all
Hmm.
near the southern border of
Right.
PA coming across the border from Maryland. And they kind of blamed it on Maryland to begin with. And and you guys have uh, no laws against it. And now here in PA, we do,
Right.
you know.
Um,
So
and this whole thing, like, you can go down a rabbit hole in each direction because everybody has an opinion on it, whether it's going to wipe out the deer herd or it's not. And you have these sharpshooters now that, from what I understand, is they'll come into a certain area where a deer tests positive, and they'll come in with sharpshooters and they'll wipe out. They'll try to shoot every single deer there, and I think that is nonsense. I think it's dumb, but I think that there's more to it than what we know. Like, I think it goes down a rabbit hole of money and the government trying to wipe out deer. It's really weird because, like, I heard about CWD 20 years ago in Maryland. There was one case they found in, I think it was Allegheny County, which is out in western Maryland. So it's been around forever. As long, at least 20, I don't know how long, 20, 30, who knows how long it's been around. It could
uh,
be around for,
late 60s.
right, for
I don't
a
know
long
about
time.
Maryland, but it was late
Right.
60s. I think originally out in Colorado. I think this is where they found out about it.
Okay. So it's been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, we're hearing about it more and more and more. And I want to bring this up because I think it's
But
relative, but it's kind of like COVID. The more you test, the more they tested for COVID, the more positive cases they found.
yeah, yeah.
With CWD, you have all these research projects now where they're, like, in Pennsylvania, you have to, like, if you're in a CWD area, aren't you supposed to drop the head off into one of them dumpsters and have them test it?
You're not forced to, but you can.
Okay, so it's volunteer.
Yes.
So there's testing everywhere now. They're
Now you can't
testing.
if you harvest a deer though in a zone, you're not allowed to take it out of the zone.
Yes, yes,
So
correct.
you have to
So
find a
it's,
butcher within that zone that'll handle it.
yes, we had that at the old farm. Um, and the old farm was a CWD area.
It was.
I'd never seen any sign of any sick deer or nothing like that.
No.
Um, we ate all the meat from there. Like, it was perfectly fine.
Yep.
Now, like I said, the more you test for something, the more you find. And that's what they're doing with CWD, because you have all these research projects and you have all these different things going on. So they're testing for it. If you test for something, you're going to find more cases. So I think that's very relative and important to note that anytime you test for something, you're going to find more of it. And who knows what else is out there? Like, I've heard that where, oh, CWD is going to wipe out the deer herd. Well, how come it hasn't done it since the 60s? How come all the deer aren't dead?
Right.
I think it's just that they're testing more, and they're like, oh my God, we're having all these positive tests. Well, okay, well, stop testing. Stop testing and just let it, and stop testing and forget about it. Why hasn't it wiped out the deer herd? So, I mean, and some people will argue that something, oh my God, you're wrong. You're totally wrong about this. Um, and like I said, I don't know. This is just my opinion. And you may have, I don't know what you might have a different opinion on. I don't know.
Slightly. Um
Slightly.
I had well, after we got that comment and we decided right then and there we was going to do this podcast. Um it just so happened that I was looking through some of my podcasts on Spotify, and the one fella, he's from the Pittsburgh area, and he actually has a camp down the road here from me. He has a podcast, and it's more on a conservation side of things.
Hmm.
And every once in a while, I'll catch his podcast. Well, I scrolled down through it, and I think it was last October he had one, and It happened to be CWD conversation, and he had a game commission biologist, which was a woman, and her boss, which is also a woman, is the head of the CWD case in PA or whatever. I don't know what their official titles are, but it was very interesting. He asked some very hard, poignant questions. I mean, poignant questions. He asked. Well, I'll get into it. So he starts out, and they start talking about it, and they brought up the feeding thing. It was back from the 60s, and they said that it can be spread through any uh, liquid from the body, even feces. So eyes, any drainage, anything, blood, all this stuff. It could be all transmittable through anything: urine, feces, blood, saliva, tear duct. Earwax, I guess, if it was moist. I don't know. But they said all that stuff included, it could be transmissible. Now, they went on to say that it is not a virus, it is not a germ, or it is a prion,
Hmm.
and it can be transferred to the soil, which never goes away. You can't cook it out of meat, even at 1,000 degrees. And he asked if it's transmissible to people, and they just said we don't know.
Yeah.
Now, I think that was a manufactured answer, because no one's got sick from these deer yet. Okay.
Well, that you know of, that we know of. I
Yeah.
mean, how would
Well,
you
and they're
know?
well, and they have tests. Everybody goes, if they get sick, they go to a doctor, and so far, no one's come up with a test to test for that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if
Right.
somebody was to eat, like, what's the difference if you eat,
Right. You might get like
something
a flu-like symptom or something.
like
Who
like
knows?
yeah, like you get food poisoning or something. How do
Right.
you know that
Yeah.
that wasn't CWD?
Correct. And
I
and
mean,
and they don't know that. So
yeah.
they just said, when he said, "Does it go to humans?" and they said, "We don't know." And they just like left it hang there, like, we
Hmm.
don't know. So okay. So my next question would have been, well, what are you doing to figure this out? You know, but he did not ask that. So she went on and said that it affects uh mainly, it goes to the brain. And what
Hmm.
ends up happening, like, she admits that they don't die, the deer do not die from CWD. They end up dying of complications from CWD. And the
Yes.
major complication from it is it eats holes in their brain.
Yeah, it's neurological.
Yeah, it literally deteriorates the brain so bad that they don't know what they're doing anymore.
Hmm.
And they might go to water and slip and fall and drown. That you see them walking in circles and that
Hmm.
type of thing. You see them foaming at the mouth, or just doing goofy stuff a lot of times. um, Here's an interesting fact. They said in Bedford County, which is down southern tier PA, nearer to Maryland, they said 1 in 3 deer is infected down there. I would have I would I would have to see proof of that personally. I mean, how can they prove that? Uh, I'm guessing the number tested versus number positives was 1 in 3, maybe. I don't know how they come up with that, but basically, they were talking about the snipers being down there, that type of thing. Like, maybe deploying people down there to just start taking deer out. But yeah, they said in Bedford, 1 in 3. That is crazy. Uh,
If that's 1 in 3, I mean that's a lot.
that's a lot.
That's a
And
lot of deer.
and so he said, well, how do we get a grip on this then? And their basic answer was, in high dense positive areas like that, just more allocation of doe tags. And that was their only cure for this.
That's the only one
Just
they
kill
have.
more deer,
Hmm.
kill more does. They didn't say anything about the bucks, which, how many times have you seen a CWD thing on the computer and it's never a doe?
Hmm.
Did you ever notice that? I mean,
Hmm.
it's probably just a coincidence, but anytime I see a deer walking in a circle or they show a deer falling into the creek and drowning, it's always been a buck. Now, they didn't say anything about shooting bucks. They said they allocate more doe tags. You know why, don't you? Because they make money on doe tags.
That's why I said
Just
earlier,
just my opinion.
yeah, it's a money trail that you got to follow
And
because
that's
the
just my
government,
opinion, but
yeah, the government's involved in all that. So
and he asked him.
yeah,
He asked him this too. He says he says I'm he was being devil's advocate. He's like asking hard questions. And he's like, "Isn't this just a scam from the insurance companies? Uh, you know, the auto insurances, people are hitting so many deer now that they're paying to have I gotta turn that off. I'm getting dinged. The insurance companies are paying to have these deer, slaughtered so that there's not so many insurance claims at the collision center." And she's like, "No, that's not true." So I mean, he was asking hard questions, but like I said, it could just be manufactured answers too.
yeah. Well, it that's why I say it's so confusing because if you ask like one biologist, he's like, "Ah, don't worry about it. It's overhyped. Don't worry about it." If you talk to another biologist, it's, "Oh my God, it's the end of the deer herd.
Yes,
You gotta stop doing feeding. You gotta kill all the deer."
yes,
And then you got guys that's in the middle. You got guys. It's the same with anything political. Everybody, you got one people this way, one person this way, people in the middle,
now
and
what we are not saying this does not exist, this is false.
no, it's a real thing.
We are not saying that. We we talked offline here, and we was talking back and forth, and we kind of agreed that it's sort of like a cancer in people or something. Not everybody gets it, but every once in a while they detect it somewhere, and somebody gets sick and ends up dying.
Hmm.
I mean, and I think this is like the cancer for deer. That
Well,
type of idea.
here's another wrench that I'm gonna throw in there. Like you just said, like cancer for people, whatever disease, everybody has like a predisposition to something. Whether it manifests or not, nobody knows. Well,
Right.
I mean, it's up to you, the way you live your life and nutrition and your lifestyle, whether you that
And she
pre
did I don't mean to interrupt your idea, but she did say that it is a fold in the DNA molecule,
right.
and what it does is it multiplies just like cancer.
Yes.
So it could, like you're saying, it could go throughout and multiply and go into the body and affect it, or it might not.
Well, I'm saying in people, you're predisposed predisposed to something, whether it's cancer, there's always that. But the way you live your life is it has a huge factor in whether that predisposition to that disease manifests. Deer, I think, are the same way. How deer are living, what their nutrition levels and all that. Deer, wild animals they have a predisposition to something. Well, what is it? Well, okay, well, they found CWD. Well, how come not all deer are affected by it? It's only certain deer. Well, nutrition plays a huge factor in that, I'm sure. Whether they say it does or doesn't.
Well,
Um, but
one of the
here's the go ahead.
one of the conspiracy theories out there is that these deer are getting sick around the farmlands where they're spraying crops.
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So years ago, I'm not going to say the name of the guy, but he swears that chemicals, glyphosate, all these farmer chemicals is what's causing a lot of the health issues in the deer herd, and not only humans. So is it that the chemicals are causing this prion and this predisposition to this CWD disease where, like you said, this cancer of the deer, is it from that? Because it seems everything that I have seen is that most areas that have CWD positive are in farm areas
Ag land. Yep.
and ag land.
Hmm.
So, I mean, who knows? And the government's not going to admit that it's glyphosate because they say it's safe, but then you got all these other researchers that say no, it's not safe.
Yeah.
Then you
Right.
got it's like,
It's banned in other countries. Why isn't it banned here?
right. And the US is one of the biggest jokes when it comes to healthcare and nutrition and the way the government, does things. And I don't know. I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that's something to think about, because I think there's a deeper cause or something that's causing the CWD with the prions, the whatever it is that's going on in their body. There's something causing it,
Well, the
right?
prion is a protein, they said.
Yes, it's a protein. Well, we have all these different things in our
Mhm.
body, and the way you live your life determines a lot of what you're predisposed to and what manifests and what doesn't. So just
Which
because,
confuses me because they say it's a prion and it's a protein,
mhm.
but somehow it deteriorates the brain. How is protein deteriorating the brain? You would think it would feed the brain. So that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we're
Uh,
not scientists, so we can't
yeah, I
we
don't know,
can't
but
we can't explain it. But
you
like,
know what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah,
bodybuilders eat a lot of protein to build their muscles. They're saying this protein's deteriorating the deer.
well, I think it's different when
You
it
know,
comes to genetics. You have proteins that can do weird things, and like even in humans, like you have people that have like high uh sugar, insulin resistance or whatever, they start getting dementia because it eats at the brain. It's insulin resistance or whatever. Type They call it type 3 diabetes, which is dementia, well, from too much sugar, high sugar in your body, which creates diabetes and everything, and insulin resistance. It eats away at your brain. So like there's things that we don't know about, like
for
in
sure.
especially deer. Like there's just not enough research into it and history or whatever with it that we're going to know for a very long time. And I think again, there's something deeper going on with the deer, whether it's
Has to be.
the chemicals, something's going on with it. Now,
Yeah.
is it going to wipe out the deer herd? I don't know, and I it's at least of my worries. I
And
haven't even thought about CWD until the listener has commented and said, "Hey, make a podcast about it."
yeah, I haven't talked about it in 2 years. I think it was 3 years ago that they made our zone here. And luckily, I'm like a mile north of that zone. So I don't have to worry about being in the CWD zone. Not saying that, the deer can't come my way and be sick. No, I'm not saying that at all. I, I don't think that we're at risk with CWD in my area, only because about 12 miles from my house in town, they must have been testing random roadkill deer, and they claim they found a doe that tested positive in the town below me here, about 12
Mhm.
miles away. So they make a zone. They make a diameter zone. I can't remember how many miles. I think it's 25-mile diameter. I'm probably wrong on that, so don't quote me. 10, 15, 20, so I don't know. Some kind of diameter around where they found that deer. In that area, they will test deer randomly. And if they do not get any positives in a 5-year period, they will lift that zone.
Yeah, I
So
heard that.
that area has to stay disease free for 5 years. So I think we're pretty close to getting our zone lifted here in the next year or
Mhm.
two. So
Well, look at the old farm, and then we'll wrap it up. But the old farm was in a CWD area,
yeah, and they
and when
got
I
some right down the road.
yeah, and when
Positives.
I leased it, had a lot of comments. They're like, "Oh, why would you lease a farm in a CWD area?" And my response was, "I don't care." They're like, "Well, you're never gonna grow a deer herd there. They're gonna be sick and this and this and this." Well, look what we started with and ended with.
Yeah, really.
It's like it doesn't. I don't care. Like, and then I had somebody. Well, how you're a deer hunter? How can you not care about the deer herd? I do care about the deer herd. I do my part. I buy my tags. I hunt. I kill what I need, or sometimes I don't kill anything because I don't want to kill something. So it's not our responsibility to. We can't do nothing about CWD. Like we have to go hunt legally by the tags that they give us, and our responsibility, if we see something sick, we need to, maybe make a call and say, hey, there's something, this deer's acting funny, and let them test whatever it is. But it's here. It's not just going to disappear, right? So like just hunt, and if
Yeah.
you see something sick, then report it. But to let it worry you and bother you and then cause all this drama
No,
and this hatred between people and
you could shoot
everything.
50 deer and
Yeah,
might
it's
have
just
one positive, might have any,
right. I mean,
you know.
it's here to stay, and I think it's just something. The more they test, the more they're going to find out about it.
They're afraid it's going to hit the PA elk.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
You know,
Um, the PAL. Everybody I love seeing the elk out there. And what's that, Benazet?
Benazet.
So I went there, been there twice. Nice place, cool to see. But hey,
Yep.
it's going to do what it does. So I say just hunt legally, do what you can. If you see something sick, report it. And if you
If
want
you're
to
in the
have,
zone and you feel better about
yeah,
it, throw your
right,
head in the box
yep,
and you'll get a
have it tested.
postcard back in the mail. I've done it before. I've got the
Yep.
postcard back from the Game Commission, and they, even though mine tested negative, it still said that they do not recommend you eat it.
Hmm.
Can you believe that?
Because it's in a CWD area.
Because it's in a CWD
So
area.
they want you to kill the deer in a CWD area and recommend that you don't
And
eat it.
they recommend you don't eat any of the deer out of
So
the CWD.
what are you supposed to do with it?
I guess see, and that's what I asked. Who's gonna repay me for my tag, my time, and the butchering cost and all that if it came back positive? I'm out all that money. You know, they don't. I don't think they offer you another tag. I don't believe so. They
I
just
don't
tell
know.
you it tested positive. Don't eat it. Now, mine did not test positive, and they said at the bottom in fine letters, "We still do not recommend that you eat this." So
So what are you supposed to do with it?
I ate it.
Yeah. I mean, we just supposed to throw it on the side of the road or something? I mean, what are you supposed to
Yeah,
do with it?
I don't know. I ate it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
But
even shared it with people, so hopefully
right,
no one gets sick.
right. Yeah, so I don't know, guys. Like I said, that's literally our opinion. Don't take it for anything. That we're not scientists, we're not researchers, we haven't been involved with any kind of studies or something.
Right?
It's literally just our opinions and stuff to think about, to throw wrenches in there to just make you think about stuff, because anytime says that somebody says something absolute, there's nothing absolute in anything. So that's just our opinion. So that's podcast 60, and appreciate everybody watching, listening, and we'll see you guys on 61.
Yeah, hopefully this was thought provoking, and fill the comments of this video up and let us know what you're thinking about it.
Yeah, everybody
Or
has a
your
different opinion, so
Yep,
give us your opinions.
yep. Just don't argue and fight.
Yeah, just create a conversation about it.
Yep.
And um, anybody listening on the audio side, appreciate some comments on Spotify and Apple. So,
We'll take more suggestions for videos too.
yep,
We will see you in 61.
61. Later.
See you guys. Who's blowing up my phone here?